Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about helmet communication systems, whether it be for your ATV, side-by-side, snowmobile, whatever it is you may have. And can you get away with an inexpensive system? And what do you gain by going up to a top-of-the-line system like the Cardos that I have here? Stick around, we're going to go through the pros and cons of each, and we'll let you decide at the end which one's best for you. So guys, before I get started, this video is not intended to be a review video. It's more so going to be a comparison between the different types of systems that are available and different options that are available, and different systems that I've tried over the years and lessons that I've learned along the way. And hopefully you won't make the same mistakes I have, which cost me more money in the end, trying to go through less expensive systems had I not just purchased a quality system in the first place. So everything on the table here I've purchased with my own money, with the exception of the Packtalk Edge by Cardo here. This particular system was just recently sent to me by Cardo, but everything up to that point, my GMRS system, which I used first off, was the first communication system I used. I then moved on to these headsets off of Amazon, and then I moved on to the Packtalk Bold system by Cardo. Everything, and the Bold I've been using for the last about 3 seasons or so. So I have a very good experience in using all of the systems, and I'm able to give a very unbiased opinion on all these different systems and what you gain and why you may want to move up to something like this right off the bat. Even though it is going to cost you more, I've paid more in the long run buying multiple systems, ultimately moving up to a Cardo system. First off, if you've never used a communication system on your ATV or side-by-side or you're off-roading in the past, it completely changes your riding experience. Being able to communicate when people need to stop or if they get stuck or break down, warning of upcoming obstacles or vehicles that are oncoming, or just joking around with the guys while you're out riding, and being able to plan your trip, when you want to stop for breaks, where you want to eat, that kind of stuff. It's very handy as opposed to having to look over your shoulder all the time and see if your buddies are still behind you or not. So it really does change the riding experience, having that communication. And I think if you were to try it yourself, it's a night and day difference, and it really adds an element to your riding. I have purchased, as I mentioned, I've purchased different systems over the years, trying to find not only the best system, but the most cost-effective system for the amount of money that I'm spending. So you have to sort of weigh both of those when you're making your decision. And you also have to factor in who else needs to buy this system as well. Is it just you buying it for your family, or is it you and other people that are going to be buying this, and everybody has to be on the same system? So you have to sort of weigh the pros and cons of the system as well as the cost, because everyone has to invest in this system that you decide on. So the first system that I got when I first got into communicators was a GMRS/FRS radio by Midland. There's lots of different companies available. I specifically chose Midland myself because I liked the helmet headset option that they had. So this is just a standard FRS radio, GMRS radio. It had a helmet kit, which you see here. And what this allowed you to do was install your earphones and your microphone in your helmet, and everything up to this point here would be installed in the back of the helmet. And then you had one wire running out of your helmet, which then went to a push-to-talk button that would be mounted on your handlebars and plugged into your unit itself, which I had mounted on my handlebars. Now, the pros to this system is that it's fairly inexpensive. You can buy 2 packs of FRS radios for fairly inexpensively, and then the headset portion for the helmet at the time was about $50. Now I believe they're up to about $80 Canadian. So not overly expensive, but not cheap either if you need to replace them. It also had decent range because it's FRS radio, so you get that range of whatever GMRS and FRS would be. There's no pairing necessary because anybody on that same channel that you're on can communicate with each other. It's easily expandable because of that. Everybody turns to the same channel and you're on the same frequency. And it's not always on. So because it's a push to talk, you just push when you want to talk as opposed to it being open communications. The cons to this system and why we ultimately went away from it is because you're tethered to your machine. So by having the radio mounted on your handlebars somewhere and having the push to talk button mounted on obviously on your handlebars so you can access it, you had this wire here, which was connected to your helmet. And the problem with that is every time you want to get off your machine, if you're stuck or have to move, you had to constantly be disconnecting this plug. And inside this connector are about 6 very small little pins in there. And we kept damaging these connectors. There are arrows on them to put them back in properly and to line them up. But when you're out there and you're covered in mud and water and stuff and you're trying to get it plugged back in, we were damaging these pins. And at $50 to $80 per helmet set here, it started adding up and getting expensive. So we ended up going away from this system. It's also very bulky in the wiring. So you can see how much wiring there is here that would be in the helmet compared to this Cardo system here, which is in the helmet. So quite a bit more wiring, plus all of this wiring that you have to sort of tie up and tame as well, that's going to be attached to your machine. And again, the biggest thing is you can't use it when you're off your machine. As soon as you step off, you disconnect and you're no longer communicating with anybody. The next system we went to after the GMRS system was these wireless headset communicators just off of Amazon. It was one of the inexpensive brands. These ones particularly made by FOD Sports, but there's lots of different brands out there. They all work basically the same in the way they pair and how they're used. But these ones worked okay for our uses. The nice thing is totally wireless, so it sticks onto the side of your helmet either with a clip bracket or you can stick it on. They're voice activated, so you don't need to worry about a push to talk button or anything like that. It's just as you speak, they're voice activated and you're communicating. The other thing is the sound quality was decent, and you can connect up to 8 riders with this system. So I wouldn't recommend that. We did use it with up to, I believe it was 8 riders. It wasn't great, and I'm going to get into why in a little bit. But if you were just using it for 2 riders, it would probably be okay. But still, there are definitely better systems out there. It was also fairly affordable. This 2-pack is about $170 US. But again, factor that price in with the price that we've already spent on GMRS radios before. We're getting up to the price of just buying a decent system right off the bat. So the cons of these particular units were the range is not great. They advertise a great range. I believe it's advertised upwards of a mile online. I'll have to double check that. So don't quote me on that. But in real life experience, we were only getting about 100 to 200 meters in the bush. Now, obviously there's more interference and trees and stuff like that, but it wasn't great in the bush. The other issue is the riders need to stay in order. So however you've paired the units, that's how your riders have to stay in order throughout your ride. And I'm going to get into that again and compare it to the Cardo system in just a few minutes here. So if riders go out of range, the other major issue we had was when they go out of range, it very often has difficulty reconnecting when they come back in range. It's supposed to be automatic and it's supposed to heal itself, but it just doesn't. And we had so many times where riders would come back after being disconnected and it wouldn't reconnect, and I'd have to repair all the headsets while we're out in the middle of the trail. There were so many times where as we started a ride, even though the headsets had all been prepared on previous rides, I would have to redo them all again, and you'd have to change it depending on the riding order. So again, if one person that was on your ride last time isn't on your ride this time, that affects the whole system. So you'd have to repair that entire system. So we just found after about 2 seasons of using these, they just weren't worth the frustration and having to go through that pairing and dealing with people just not being able to communicate with each other. It just got so frustrating that we just decided to get rid of those and move up to the Cardos. So we'll talk about that next, and we'll talk about the differences. Now, before I get into specific features on the Cardos themselves, I want to go over the 2 different systems and how these Amazon cheaper Bluetooth headsets function and compare to the mesh network that the Cardo system uses. So I've got 6 units here. What I want to do is just imagine for this demonstration that all of these units are these Amazon type units. Okay, so you've purchased 6 of them, you can go up to 8, and you've paired them all and you're going to go out riding. So what happens is this first unit pairs to the second pairs to the third to the fourth, and so on. So if one of these units drops out, there's no longer a link between these two units here. So these two can still talk to each other if they're close enough to each other. These three can still talk to each other, but this group and this group can't communicate. So what we were finding was you'd get to an area and you don't know what's down a certain trail. So one particular person says, hey, let me drive down there and check it out. So this person leaves to go and check it out. You've now split up the group. Now what is supposed to happen is when this person comes back, the network should heal itself. We were finding 9 times out of 10 that wasn't happening. And either this person may be able to talk to these two people or to these three, but it was very seldom that the whole group would reconnect itself. The other drawback to this is if all units are paired, because they're paired to each other, you have to remain in the same order. So if these three people drop back to either look at something or to do something, and then on the way back, they come back in a different order, this unit will not connect to this one because this unit was the one that was connected to it. So it became a real pain in the butt, always having to make sure everybody was in the same order and people didn't leave because it broke the system. Okay, so it did end up being very frustrating, and if someone did want to change order, then we had to repair the whole system. The other issue is if you have everything paired and you have 6 riders, but let's say this rider and this rider are 2 that want to go out on the next trip. The other 4 don't come on the next ride. These 2 can't communicate with each other without pairing them together. And then when you go on a group ride again in the future, you have to repair the whole system. So as you can see and as you can imagine, it's very frustrating to use for anything more than 2 units. Anything more than 2, it just becomes a real pain in the butt. Moving on to the way the Cardo system works, if we now imagine all of these are Cardos, it uses what's called DMC, which is Dynamic Mesh Communication. And every unit is communicating with every other unit as long as it's within range. So as you drive around, and if this person drops back here and these move up, the network, the mesh network is constantly changing and constantly keeping everybody in communication. The other thing is, if this person drops out to go and check another trail or just stops and maybe falls behind, all of these people are still communicating with each other, and it's seamless. You don't hear any drop in communication. You don't notice anything's changed. It all remains seamless in your communication. When this person comes back, maybe they join the end of the line now. It doesn't matter. It automatically reconnects as soon as they're back in range, and it's like nothing ever happened. There's never been a time I think it's going on 3 seasons now that we've been using the Cardo Bolds. There's never been a time where we've had to repair the system. We've added riders to the system as new people have got the headsets, but we've never had to repair and never had issues of people going out in differing groups. So if I have all these paired and myself and one other person want to go out for a ride, even if we are this unit and we go for a ride, they talk to each other without all of the other units being there. And at the same time, 2 other people can go out on a ride. They're always paired. And then as soon as we all go out as a group, all the headsets work together. So that is the main difference and the main benefit to going with the mesh network that Cardo has versus the standard Bluetooth system that the cheaper systems use or the cheaper headsets use, and why you can see it would be very frustrating, and it is very frustrating compared to the Cardo system. So now that we've gone over the main differences in the networking and how they communicate with each other and how the different headsets connect between the 2 systems, let's get into the Cardos a little bit and just sort of show you how they function. I'm not going to get into like the app and individual features and stuff like that in this particular video. Cardo themselves have lots of videos out there showing exactly how to use the different units, how to set them up, and how to use the app. So I'm not going to get into all that. I just want to give you a basic generic overview of them and just go over a few common features that they have. So as I said, I've been using the Bold for a few years now. It's a great unit, and everything between the Bold and the Edge is very similar, except for a few things I'll get into at the end. So everything that I say up to this point now is going to be common between the Bold and the Edge. The Bold is actually a discontinued unit now. You may be able to find some of them still kicking around in stores, but the Edge has replaced them and is now their flagship model. So in addition to the dynamic mesh, which we talked about, you can connect up to 15 riders with this system. So you can imagine if you had 15 riders with the other system, it would just be a nightmare of connecting people. With this system, up to 15, and they have a 1 mile or 1.6 kilometer range. That's going to be under ideal conditions. You're never going to see that in the off-road environment, like in the forest, in the bush where we are. If you were using these on a motorcycle and it was straight line of sight, you will see significantly better range than what we get. But again, that's under ideal conditions that you're going to get a mile. We see roughly about 400, say 300 to 400 meters of range between units when we're out in the bush. So it's still very good and still almost double what the other system was. And the way these are going to connect, so you get two different types of mounting when you get them. This particular one here, I'm using the clip-on mount. So this just slides up underneath the lip of the helmet and then gives you a mounting bracket to mount your headset to. And the Bold here just clips right in, put in the front first, and it clips in, and that's how you attach it. And then to release it, you just push down on the back and it pops right out. So very simple to use and very easy to mount it if you need to take it off or wash it, things like that. I take them off. They're all waterproof to IP67 rating. That's one of the biggest features and biggest benefits to the Cardos over the other major brand being Sena. Sena is not waterproof. They're water resistant, but these are dust and waterproof. So I run these under the water, under the tap when I get home to wash all the mud and stuff off. I don't have to worry about dust or water with any of these units. They're IP67 waterproof. It's also been a flawless connection in the communications. Like I mentioned earlier, in 3 years, we've never had units not connect to each other. You have an app as well. So these are controlled by an app. You don't need to use the app. You can sync everything up without an app, but it just makes it that much easier. And you can do phone calls and set up your music and all that kind of stuff to listen to if you do set it up through the app. This is what the mounting cradle looks like when you first get it and how everything's wired. So you have JBL speakers, and these are significantly heavier than the ones that came with the other headsets that I had. So these do sound very good. They come with spacers to put them a little bit closer to your ear if you need to. And then you have two options for mics. You have this boom style mic, which I've preferred because it allows you to get the mic that much closer to your mouth just for clarity. Or it comes with the same style, just a loose mic on the end of the wire, which you can stick inside the front of your helmet there. So those are the two different mounting options that you have. And if you don't want to, or if you can't clip it onto the bottom of your helmet, then you also have the option for a two-sided adhesive and just stick it onto the helmet wherever you need, like I have with the Edge one here. It's just stuck on because this helmet has a very thick lip and I couldn't get it slid on over the edge of the lip. So with the Edge, moving on to that, before I do that, one other thing that you can do with the Cardos is if you had a group that had, say, 4 Cardos like I have here, and then you have someone that shows up to ride with you and they have that other style, Bluetooth, Amazon type headset, or maybe they come along with a Sena or something else. This headset will still connect to these Cardos, but it'll do it by Bluetooth. It won't be part of the DMC network, but it will connect by Bluetooth, but it will only connect to the one unit that you're pairing it to. So if in a group of 3 units here, I pair to this middle one, that's the one that it's paired to. It'll still make it part of the mesh network and you'll still be able to talk to that person amongst everybody, but this person is paired to this person. So if this person leaves, this person cannot communicate with those people anymore because the unit that it was paired to has left. So just one thing to keep in mind, it is possible, but you start to get into some of those limitations that we had on that older system, okay? Moving on to the Edge. So the biggest difference with the Edge now is it's an internal antenna. You can see on the Bold, it has a flip up external antenna, and that is important to keep up. We do notice a significant increase in range when we put the antenna up versus sometimes we forget to put it up and just leave it down. But it is important to put that up. With the Edge, it's all built in, so it's all a nice, sleek, streamlined unit. You can also, with the Edge, if you are making videos or anything like that, like I do with my rides, is you can record all of the conversation. So you'll see in a lot of my ride videos, you can only hear my side of the conversation because I have a camera mounted on the front of my helmet, and that microphone on the camera is just picking up my speaking. Whereas with the Edge, you can actually record all of the audio amongst all of your riders through the app. So if that's something that interests you, this has that capability. You also have a 3-year warranty on this versus a 2-year on the other units, and over-the-air updates. You don't need to plug this in. On the Bold, I needed to plug it into my computer to do updates. On this one, it's all over the air. And the last difference with the Edge is they've changed the mounting system now to what they call an air mount. So you literally just take your unit, bring it up to your mounting cradle, and it magnets right into the unit. Now, when I first saw this, I was worried that it was just held on by a magnet, and that if this got caught on something or banged around, it was going to pop off, but it doesn't. You actually have to press down on the front here of the mounting bracket, and then the unit slides out the front. So it does actually clip in when you mount it, but it's just simply magneted on in order to get it on there. So it's a really cool feature. So overall, I hope that this has helped explain the differences in some of the systems that are available. There may be other systems out there, but as far as helmet communicators, I think these are the 3 main different types of systems that are available. I highly recommend the Cardo system. Like I said, I've spent easily the amount, especially replacing because of the plugs on that GMRS radio, I've easily spent more money on those types of systems over the long run than if I had just invested and spent the money on a Cardo from the beginning. Now, like I said, the Bold is discontinued. The Edge is Cardo's new flagship model. They have just come out with the Packtalk Pro, which is more geared towards motorcyclists. It has features like crash detection and a couple other on-road features that if you're using it for motorcycling, it's definitely going to be worth taking a look at that one. But for off-road use, for this type of use, the Edge is a perfect unit. They do have a couple units below this one now, still the same form factor as the Edge, but a little bit less expensive. So take a look at either the Neo or the Packtalk Custom if you're looking for different options there. The other nice thing with the Cardos is if you do have multiple helmets, so say you do have an off-road helmet and then you have a motorcycle helmet and you want to use the same unit, you can get just additional helmet kits and have 2 helmets set up or multiple helmets set up, and then just take the unit and change it between helmets. So it saves you having to buy multiple units for that particular use. So overall, I hope you guys have found the video helpful. I know it's gone on a little bit long, but I wanted to really try and break down the differences in the different types of systems and why you may want to invest in a better quality system as opposed to dealing with the frustrations of the lesser quality systems. If you do check out Cardo, I'll put a link in the description. I do have a discount code available. It's going to get you anywhere from 10 to 25% off on their website, depending on what types of promotions they have running at the time. But use code JOHNSOFFROAD. I'll also put it in the description, and it'll help you save some money there. So I really hope you guys found the video helpful. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. In the meantime, we'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.